More people need to be talking about this, Mace, because are the Broncos really as bad as ESPN's Mike Clay is projecting them to be? And first and foremost, Mike Clay is one of the best in the football industry, whether you talk fantasy or regular football. Mike Clay is, a fantastic mind for this game. And his projections for the entire league came out, Mace, and they're not real good for the Broncos.
Yeah, not at all. First of all, hi, Cecil. Good to see you. But yeah, this Broncos roster right now, first of all, he goes through position by position, ranks every unit. And he's got a voluminous PDF file that you can follow from his social media, from his Twitter/X account. And here's where he has the Broncos position by position.
Okay.
Quarterbacks 31, running backs 26th, wide receivers 24th, tight ends 24th, offensive line 10th, interior defensive line 17th, edge rushers 25th, off-ball linebackers 24th, cornerbacks 14th, and safeties 30th. So, yay, Broncos aren't the worst in anything, but not so yay, only a top half of the league unit in 2 of those 10 position groups. And that's how you look at the overall ranking. And the Broncos are sitting 3rd from the bottom of these rankings based on the roster today.
I just want to know how many people are going to be triggered because the offensive line is 10th. I was like, the O-line isn't that bad, baby. Okay, everyone out there, like we've been telling you all year, like the offensive line is better. But the rest of it, outside of cornerback, Mace, those numbers will make you cringe.
Yeah. By the way, they're 10th, and they're 10th without Lloyd Cushenberry. That's factored into having a new center in either Alex Forsyth or Luke Wattenberg stepping in, which says a lot about the other 4 components of that offensive line and how they are regarded. But yeah, the rest of it, man. Whew.
Well, I look over it. Yeah. Go ahead, Mace. Go ahead.
Well, the other aspect to this, because there's so many layers, because I love what Mike does. It's so thorough, so voluminous.
Yes. Yeah, for the entire league.
Yeah, going through the rankings of position groups like this, but also going through each game and putting a percent based on these rankings and where he has the roster, a percentage chance to win each game. Cease. There isn't a game in Mike Clay's estimation where the Broncos have even a 50% chance to win. Doesn't mean he's projecting them to go 0-17.
Right.
But their greatest win possibility, according to Mike Clay, is when Carolina comes to Denver. That's 49%. He's got the Panthers coming off 2-15 with a better shot to win that game. Of course, that being said, the Panthers have been active in free agency. They have a better roster than they did a month ago, even though you're taking Brian Burns out of the equation. The Broncos don't have a better roster. I mean, that's just on paper. It might work out differently over the long term, but on paper today, this roster is not better than it was 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, they've got a coach to get it done, and that's why I still stand by it. This Mike Clay stuff is so interesting, Mace, because I still believe Sean Payton can coach you with Jarrett Stidham to 5 wins, 6 wins, maybe more, probably not, but like let's just say 6 wins. Well, that's not Mike Clay doesn't see that, and Mike Clay doesn't have them with a 1,000-yard rusher, doesn't have them with a 1,000-yard receiver. Like, there's a lot of fantasy notes within these projections as well, and it's not good. If you play fantasy football, you're not drafting many Denver Broncos.
Right. And that's the other thing, because he puts the numbers out there for fantasy consumption as well. And looking over this, at wide receiver has Courtland Sutton leading the way with 916 yards and 5 touchdowns. Marvin Mims Jr. following with 709 and 3 touchdowns. Tim Patrick with 575 yards and 3 touchdowns. Now, Clay tends to go for conservative estimates because he's factoring in odds of injuries, that sort of thing. But not looking at anybody as being a world beater. Like, for example, in sacks on the defensive side, does not have a single Broncos player with more than 6.9 projected sacks. That 6.9 figure, by the way, is Jonathan Cooper, followed by Nick Bonio 6.2 and Baron Browning 6.1. So, I mean, by and large, this is not a roster from which he expects very much. And oh, by the way, at quarterback, he expects Jarrett Stidham and Ben DiNucci. Again, it's based on what you have now,
right, to
combine for 19 touchdowns and 17 interceptions.
Yeah, it's rough. That's rough. Now it's what they have right now. It's not great, Bob. You probably get sick of me saying that. I can't remember what movie it's from. But anyway, like if we look at just those quarterbacks, can one rookie make all of this different? We know the answer, Mace.
If it's Bo Nix walking in and starting right away, does it look different? Is it going to be 19 touchdowns, 17 interceptions? And oh, by the way, he's got Broncos quarterbacks accounting for 2 rushing touchdowns as well. Okay. So you have 21 total touchdowns and 17 interceptions. If it's Bo Nix, because he's such a threat to take off and run as well when the opening avails itself, I think with Bo Nix, you're actually, believe it or not, and some may shudder at this, talking about 30 total touchdowns from the quarterback position. That's if he starts week 1. If Bo Nix starts the entire season, I believe he ends up with 30 total touchdowns. Now, it may be 22 and 8. 22 passing, 8 rushing. But that's a darn sight more than what we're looking at here in the Clay projection, with 21 touchdowns coming from the quarterback position, which, if that's the case, it's going to be a long year in Broncos country.
Yeah, and it's going to be the type of year where there's plenty of fans, Mason. I push back against it, but when they're like, oh, just go get Shadeur 2025. Well, Mike Clay, based on the way Mike Clay has you set up, maybe Shadeur Sanders is something you could get. I still don't think it would happen, but maybe I'm completely wrong.
Well, he's got the Broncos projected with 4.8 wins. Now, again, his projections tend to settle in the middle, not extremely low, not extremely high, based on the percentage chances of winning. Like, basically, it's like, okay, 49% against the Carolina Panthers, 46% at home against the Las Vegas Raiders. And then I think the next percentage here, as I go through this chart, is 39% on the road against the Las Vegas Raiders, followed by 36% at home versus the Colts. So you add all that up, and that, you add those percentages up, and you're winning 1 to 2 of those games, right? Of those 4, when you're talking about at least a 36% chance to win every one of those games. Yep. And that's how he comes up with 4.8, which, by the way, ranks 31st. But here's another thing that I think is really interesting. He's got the Broncos doing this against a relatively weak schedule.
Oh, yes.
Also ranks the strength of schedule based on the perception of what's expected. And his projected strength of schedule ranking for the Broncos is a not so robust 28th in the NFL.
Yep.
I think with this, I'm a numbers guy, Cecil, as you know, as I think the audience knows.
Right.
And when you see numbers like this, it sort of sticks in your mind. Like it provides clarity mentally for me to see, wow, this is how an independent, and I'll say this, are his projections perfect? No, they're not. I mean, but in terms of ranking rosters and ranking overall position groups, this is as good as you're going to get, by and large. And the good thing is he changes it in the offseason, so we have a chance to see, say, 6 weeks from now, if the Broncos add a quarterback, how different does it look? Or right. if they add a quarterback in round 1, or if there are various draft moves made, maybe somehow you're ending up with a second round pick. What if you do pull off the inside straight of getting Brock Bowers in round 1 and then Bo Nix early round 2? if you were coming up with a dream scenario, it might be that. I'm just fretful of what it might take to get that second round pick to take Bo Nix. Does it require trading from future capital? Are you weakening the roster? Because to make that deal to get a second round pick, if you're including player capital, I mean, the one name that kind of pops up would be Courtland Sutton, and thus you're weakening an already low receiving core that is 24th in the NFL.
Yeah. Mace, it's like credit card debt. It's going to come due. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you can keep pushing it back and you can keep fudging the numbers and moving stuff around, but eventually you got to pay. And maybe this is the year that they pay. And you mentioned the numbers. People might scoff at Sutton with the 5 touchdowns. Well, he had 10 last year. Touchdowns are always the most difficult to predict or repeat. So it's not just as easy as saying Sutton's going to have 10 touchdowns again, especially if we don't know who's throwing him the ball.
Exactly. And whoever the quarterback is, it's going to look and feel different. And so it's fair to wonder whether that quarterback style is going to favor Courtland Sutton having double-digit touchdowns again. Now, I'm going to choose optimism for the moment here. That style may favor Marvin Mims Jr. because let's talk about Bo Nix for a moment. What is one thing that you hear commonly stated positively about Bo Nix is the ability to lead receivers. That part of that, and you're hoping the processor is what it appears to be on the film, but the ability to lead receivers and set up yardage after the catch, that is essential in a Sean Payton offense. And I bring that up because that's where optimistically, again, choosing optimism in this moment, I don't think you have to squint and see double-digit touchdowns for Marvin Mims Jr. because whether it's Jarrett Stidham, who's on rhythm, on schedule, maybe not highly effective, but at least on rhythm, or Bo Nix, you have somebody who can lead the receiver. Look at the play that Jerry Jeudy had in Week 18 in Las Vegas. Nice job being led by Jarrett Stidham.
Right.
Little Jordan Humphrey, Week 17 against the Chargers. Stidham leads him well. You get some great blocking, so it takes teamwork on the part of it. But it's not. But even if it's Jarrett Stidham, Cecil, I don't think it's hard to squint and see Marvin Mims Jr. becoming the double-digit touchdown maker and not Courtland Sutton, even though the Clay projections don't have Mims reaching that level.
Right. And I had Mims compared to Emmanuel Sanders. So let's see some of that. And I could make the argument, well, especially when he was with the 49ers, like Emmanuel Sanders is number 1. He was number 2 in Denver because of DT, but he's got number 1 talent and Mims does as well. Could we see that transition? Now, I thought you were going to say, and it's important to bring up the way that Nix leads receivers, but I thought you were going to talk about the screens and the short stuff, which again is a difficult throw. Yeah. People, it's just a bunch of short stuff. Guy's just standing there. If a player's moving, you can throw it, and then it's up to him to kind of adjust to where you threw it. Well, if he's just standing there waiting for the pass, defense is coming in, you got to zip it there. Nix does that really well. That sounds like a Marvin Mims play, right? I mean, we don't see Sutton do the DT wide receiver screen. I could see Mims doing that, though, and setting up some big plays after the catch.
Exactly. And how many times last year did we see Russell Wilson miss an open target on a screen? How many times did he miss Jaleel McLaughlin when he was open? Or Javonte, just overthrow, underthrow, not catchable.
Or make it so difficult for him.
It's not to say that won't happen with Jarrett Stidham. In fact, one thing that disappointed me with Jarrett Stidham in the last 2 games was that he did miss some open stuff.
Yeah. Mace, I also look at these running backs because if we think Bo Nix is the quarterback or someone else not named Jarrett Stidham, or hell, Mace, even with Jarrett Stidham, I think running back numbers could be bumped up. Again, Mike does fantastic work, but I look at just kind of the direction of this team, and if you have a young quarterback or if you have Jarrett Stidham, perhaps you should lean on your ground game a little bit more. Javonte Williams with 174 carries, how about that's 225 carries, right? So give him 50 more carries. Jaleel McLaughlin with 95 carries. How about 125 carries? So I could see fewer passing attempts. He has 589 between Stidham and Ben DiNucci right now. I could see fewer passing attempts in favor of more rushing attempts because I really think you're going to have to lean on the ground game, whether it's Stidham, Nix, whoever.
Well, and the other thing you're also going to lean on with the running backs is catching passes out of the backfield, right? Because he's got Javonte with 44 receptions for 273 yards. Now, I know that per catch average isn't going to, to get anyone going crazy. But think about this right now. From the running back position, he has Javonte, Jaleel McLaughlin, Samaje Perine, Tyler Beatty, and fullback Michael Burton combining for 79 plus 41. So 128 receptions from the running back position. That is also done with knowledge of what Sean Payton wants to do schematically and what he's done historically. But 128 catches. He has, by the way, Javonte and Samaje Perine ranking right there, tied for third and fifth in receptions, with Jaleel McLaughlin right behind in sixth, ahead of any tight end, ahead of any other pass catcher. So I think that's another thing to kind of look for this year, no matter who the quarterback is, getting the ball to the running backs more and hopefully setting them up for more success. What I'm hoping for is that Jaleel McLaughlin not a tell when he's out there, and that's incumbent upon him being a better blocker. If he is, then you're going to have more of the element of surprise. You're going to have more space for him as a pass catcher, and that's going to lead to some bigger plays. And so that kind of leaves me optimistic that even like right now, looking at 242 yards on 35 catches for Jaleel McLaughlin. Okay, that's perfectly cromulent. That's just under 7 yards of reception. I think if you've got more of the element of surprise working with Jaleel, that we're talking about maybe 8 to 9 yards of reception. I think that's a goal that I have for him this year, because some of those plays, if led properly and operating with enough space, become explosives down the field.
Yeah, and if you get him the ball the right way, Russ struggled with doing that with Jaleel. Like that, running back should be like around 10. So 9 yards, 8.5 yards per reception. For running back, that's where you should be, and that's why they're so valuable. Mace, you know what I'm thinking about? The draft. And what I'm thinking about here is not Marshawn Lloyd, although I would love, and some of the evaluators I talked to yesterday, including a former general manager. Braylon Allen is seen as by some as potentially the best back in this draft, but I did get some notes on a guy that I had thought I saw some Kamara in, and it's not helmet scouting, but it's Jalen Smith, the Tennessee kid. So this is where I go to like a third round smash, like a Kamara. I know Trey Hendrickson was fourth round, he's a defender, but these mid round guys, if somehow, some way you can smash them, as the Saints Mickey Loomis did in 2017. If you can get these type of guys, that really changes the dynamic, because if you get a Braylon Allen and now he's the man and Javonte's the badge, give Javonte 150 carries as a backup. Give Braylon Allen 200 carries as the starter. Like, what's that look like? So some of these mid-round picks, hits, whether it's Braylon Allen, Jalen Smith, I still do love Marshawn Lloyd, that could change the dynamic here.
And with Braylon Allen in particular, it wasn't a great fit transitioning to a new offense last year at Wisconsin as Luke Fickell came in, overhauled the scheme. But as he talked to us at the Combine about this, allowed him to work more as a pass catcher. So through a season that was a bit frustrating and probably wasn't quite what Braylon Allen hoped for, and which is part of the reason why you're talking about him third, maybe even early fourth round, he added a tool to his belt that is going to help him, and particularly would help him in a Sean Payton offense. You've got a running back that big, that powerful, that strong, who can catch the football and be a plus player in space. I mean, you get him in space like that, and you're sending 243 pounds of full speed human being at a corner who's about 190. I'm no physicist, but I think I know how that matchup turns out.
It's called business decisions. That's right. I will say this. You do a show with a fantasy guy. This is what you get, Mace. 29 catches, 332 yards, 1 touchdown for Greg Dulcich. I highly doubt he gets those numbers. But again, I'll go back to the draft and give me a player. Maybe it is Bowers, right? Maybe it's Jared Wiley, who I love at TCU. People see him as a 4th-round pick. You get that upgrade. You get that stud at tight end. Maybe that's where their hit comes from, right? It's a mid-round tight end. Name me a guy. It doesn't matter. If that pick hits, maybe there's more. Because a young quarterback, he leans on a ground game. And his favorite target is the security blanket of the tight end. So getting a proper tight end. Love Greg Dulcich. The talent's easy to see. He's never healthy. Get a guy, Bowers, whoever. Now that number could be different.
Yeah. And if you don't get that guy, that's where you keep your eye on Lucas Kroll. I mean, it's funny. You were the optimist about Lucas Kroll before seeing him out there. I'm probably a little more optimistic about Lucas Kroll actually having seen him function in the offense. And I think the discussion about Lucas Kroll and his outlook for this year is a lot different, if not for a phenomenal play made against him in Week 18. And so very much sometimes you have, in a baseball parlance, because I'll be catching a baseball game today, sometimes you tip your cap, is what they say. When an outfielder makes a running catch, steals a double from you to the gap, tip the cap. That's what you have to do. And Kroll had that moment, unfortunately happen against him, but I'm optimistic about more from the tight end, even though they'll add to the room. Honestly, and Parker Gabriel and I were talking about this last Friday, Cecil. Let's say they do add a tight end to that room, along with Adam Troutman coming back, along with Nate Adkins. Is there a scenario where Lucas Kroll and Greg Dulcich are fighting for one spot? Because I could see that as a roster battle developing as we get into the summertime.
Yep. And you're the first one to say it. Dulcich's spot is not guaranteed. Not at all. So that's the way we do it. Defensively, do you see anything? I mean, we could say one of the Jonathan Cooper does way better, or Nick Benito takes that next step. So I'm thinking defensively, like, we kind of know where they're at, but you project them to grow. And I think Riley Moss, if we're going to target someone on the defensive side to say, like, his play that we don't know yet, that'll be the largest difference maker. To me, it's Riley Moss.
Yes, I think so as well. Now, interestingly, even though Damari Mathis lost his job last year, I do know that they have not lost all hope in Damari Mathis. I would expect that corner spot to be a Moss-Mathis competition. I'd give the edge to Moss because of the draft capital investment and because he was brought in after Sean Payton took the job, and under Sean Payton's watch, they trade up for him. So you can't necessarily dismiss that part of it. But we also know with Sean Payton, his history going back to New Orleans is he will play the better player, regardless of investment in the draft. So if Damari Mathis comes out, puts last year behind him, gets back to where he was in the second half of 2022, which is, frankly, I thought he was a promising corner. I thought Damari had long-term CB2 potential. It got away from him last year. He gets a second chance going into this offseason, but it's a second chance that's got competition. Think of it very similar to, Drew Locke getting a second chance in 2021, but competing with Teddy Bridgewater. I know there are going to be people like, oh, well, they really weren't doing that. No, Drew Locke played at a level in 2020 that dictated bringing in competition, right? Damari Mathis, before he got benched, was playing at a level in 2023 that dictated best thing you're going to have is competition. You might lose the job entirely, but the best case scenario is competition. And that's what it looks like it's going to be. Again, I'd give Moss the edge, but I can tell you internally, they have not closed the book on Damari Mathis being a plus player for this team.
Right. All right, Mace, you're going to catch a baseball game today.
Yes.
How's that feel, man? You're going to, I know we say shared moment, but you're going to like steal a moment where you're like, I get to watch a baseball game. It makes you so happy.
It's a good way to get the season started. You know, I'll see quite a bit of the Rockies this year, but they've got their everyday lineup pretty much out there today. Now that you've whittled down the roster at spring training, you show up at the end of spring training, you start seeing basically what the team is going to look like, what the rotation is going to look like. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see as we record this. By the time you watch this, the game will be in the past. But I'm excited to see how the Rockies look, even though it's a long-term play. Boy, I'm seeing a lot of developmental teams, man. The Broncos, the Rockies,
right?
These, I think this is in a sports parlance for me, a sports sense for me. This is a rebuilding year as far as the teams that I'm seeing the most.
Yes, yeah, that is for sure.
That's okay. That's okay. Yeah,
good thing Denver sports fans have the Nuggets and the Avalanche. I was texting with our buddy Chad Andrus from 104 through the Fan about the Knicks. Because I'm a Knicks fan, and I was like, yeah, you know what's going to happen is the Knicks are going to make the NBA Finals, and the Nuggets are going to sweep them.
Yes.
So, and I will be rooting for the Nuggets if anyone has. Why would you like? Oh God, please, come on, everybody. I don't want to take the heat that you did rooting for Tampa Bay.
Hey, I'll be perfectly fine if the Nuggets swept the Knicks like that. It would actually be a comeuppance for the East Coast, the East Coast media that still doesn't buy into the Denver Nuggets after all this time. If they saw the New York Knicks go against them, the New York Knicks, so many of the East Coast media loves the Knicks, wants the Knicks. The NBA needs the Knicks to succeed. Actually, no, it doesn't. Okay,
they haven't succeeded in 50 years.
Yes, their last championship was in 1973, and the NBA has grown by leaps and bounds since then. They don't need the Knicks. Not important. Not important.
It is cool seeing Madison Square Garden.
It is.
Like you're a baseball guy. I'm a basketball guy when it's not football, and Madison Square Garden is. I'm getting chills just even bringing it up. Like that is one of the mecca of basketball.
Everyone should go see a basketball game, whether it's college or pro. Go see the Knicks, or go see the Big East tournament, which isn't what it used to be, but it's still pretty poppin'. Go see one of those two things at Madison Square Garden. Put that on your bucket list.
All right, Mace, let's get you out of here so you can catch that Rockies game. OBT is a BFD. So, Mace, help them out on YouTube. What do they do?
They got to like,
comment,
share,
subscribe,
hit that notification bell so that you never miss a vid.
That's right.
It'll
Andrew
be
Mason.
We promise faster timing on that when we're in Orlando in a few days.
Yeah, we'll have good timing. Maybe a little jazz hands there as well. He's Andrew Mason. You follow him on all the socials at Mace Denver. I'm at Cecil Lammey. Again, OBT is a BFD. Thanks for watching. Would you please stay tuned? And as always, stay frosty.